I don't think that it's a double, we don't all win. I don't think it really matter cause we all sin. I don't really get no fuck, but is you all in? What? Baby, I be getting
We up. It's your boy Alejandro Hernandez. This is Joe in the Wind. And today we're doing things a little bit different. We're on Zoom. And we got my boy here, Jack. Hello, Keith, bro. I got to ask you a question. How do you pronounce your last name?
I before E, it is Riedy. What's up, Jack Riedy? Thanks for having me on. Yeah, I get that a lot. A lot of people go Riedy. It is what it is. I get it misspelled all the time too. It's a reformed Polish name at its root. So I think it's been switched up over the generations. But yes, Riedy is the name. That's a little bit behind. I think it's my Instagram name. That's badgalriedy. Like Rihanna. I was like, people know what that is. That's like a pronunciation hint, you know.
I didn't even think about that.
That, like it doesn't always work, but sometimes. That's what I'm hoping at least. Thanks for having me, man. I'm excited.
Yeah, I was just noticed you're wearing $1 Million Man shirt. So shout out our boy Leo for the world.
Yeah. I love this. I love this design he's got going. I have no idea. It seems like every time I check out his page, he's got this Nelson Mandela print on like a new item of some kind. But I'm glad I hopped on the shirts when I could get them, and I'm intrigued to see what he does next. I really like this one design he's been like putting all over the place, and I think it's so fantastic. But I really want to know what else he's cooking up too.
I actually went to high school with him, so
oh really?
Yeah, so Leo, bro, if you listen to this, man, if you ever want to hop on the pod, just hit the line, bro.
Shout out $1 Million Man. That's a cool ass brand. I'm excited for them.
But anyway, let's just get into it. So you're obviously you work as a music journalist here in Chicago, primarily with the Reader, and you also have work with you did an interview with the Grammys before the Grammys, I should say.
Mm-hmm.
I think I've seen you work for DJ Booth as well.
DJ Booth. I've been working on Audio Mac this year since they kind of switched up how things were running on their end. I've been writing for Bandcamp recently, which I've been enjoying. I always think of PAL, Passion of the Weiss, as kind of like my home base a little bit. It's been a little bit since I've written for them, but they always do great work. And I'm trying to think what other big spots I've had this year. That might have covered all of them. But yeah, no, I've been doing Chicago music writing for a little while now, and we're like deep in Listmas season now. So everybody's talking about their favorite stuff that came out, and everybody's putting out their little lists and things like that. I actually turned in my last freelance story of the year for the Reader. I just filed yesterday, so I got some edits to complete on that at some point, and then that'll be my last publication of 2020, which I'm excited about.
Oh, crazy! I need to get back to the freelancing game because it's been too long. I've been on a hiatus.
I was just going back to some of your shit, man. I wrote about Green Slime and Quarry for a friend's top songs list. I wrote about Retrospective, that little single they put out, and I was going back to read your oral history of that Operation Hennessy project, which is like instant classic for me, and I'm sure it was for you too. That was a great story.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. That was actually a story that definitely kind of like, I think, put me out there as like a music writer here in Chicago, because I think that was kind of like the piece that kind of gave me clout, I should say.
The ever elusive.
Yeah, that was the piece. I think that's when you started like following me. I think Leor too. Shout out Leor. That's when he started like following me after that piece too. So yeah, that was, if people ever ask me like what was my favorite piece or what was a specific piece that like definitely kind of changed things for me, it was definitely that piece. So
yeah, that was a well done story. I mean, it like really works with those guys when they're clearly friends of each other, that they can talk, about themselves and their work like in a very like humorous, entertaining way. And I remember, it feels like it wasn't long after that, maybe it was. But you also did the story on the corner store that album cover was shot at. And I remember thinking like, oh, that's really cool. Like I never would have thought to figure out like, oh, what corner store was this? But like, not only did you kind of get like two stories out of this one album, but also like covered like it covered it in a way that like obviously no one else had thought to do. So that was really cool. So yeah, you do need to get back in the game. I think you got some good ideas you can make happen.
I know, man. I'm trying. It's been a mission, man. Just trying to. Well, I'm like,
you're busy making other content right now. Obviously, here we are.
Experience life. Lately I've been thinking about like why I haven't been writing as much lately, because people have been asking me, and And I just always tell them the same thing, and it's because like I just needed to experience life for a minute.
Yeah, that's I mean, I'm sure everybody says it, but I feel like that was some Frank Ocean shit in particular. I remember when Blonde came out, that was like something he was talking about. I don't know if it was in his magazine or an interview or something, but talking about like, yeah, I took some time between albums because I had to like go do stuff that I could then write songs about. You know what I mean? Yeah, you need to like get your little break on every once in a while. That's what I mean. Part why I know I'm doing my last story of the year was because I'm trying to take at least 3 or 4 weeks of not writing anything. Because if you got a several deadlines looming over you at once, it feels like you're doing homework all the time.
Facts, yeah. And like, I do homework, man. I already graduated, bro.
That's what I'm saying. I'm supposed to be done with this, you know?
But actually, like, it's funny you said Frank Ocean, because I had no idea Frank Ocean said that. But really, I've been saying that to people, like, oh, I just need to experience life, because that's actually advice that I got from Mick Jenkins.
Oh, no shit. Yeah.
It was the summer after I graduated high school. I went to like a little like interview panel that he was doing at the Museum of Contemporary Art, and afterward, you know, I kind of like stuck around to see if, you know, if I could like, you know, get a picture with him, ask him a question, and sure enough, I was able to like go up to him, and I just asked him like first question that came to my head was like, what do you have advice for like people with writer's block? And like
Yeah.
it was like you know, if you don't force shit, if you're trying to write something and you just can't write, then just don't write, just go up. And that's just something I've been thinking a lot about lately, and I think I've experienced enough life in the last 3 or 4 months where I could finally get back into writing at a regular rate that I used to.
Yeah. I think you should get some pitches out there for the start of the year, man.
But anyway, enough about whatever tangents that was on. Listen to season, and obviously end of the year in music. I know that these days we're working on our list too. I just turned in a couple of my picks for you know, albums of the year. So I figured that'd be a good place for us to start this conversation. So
Yeah, man. Did you have like a number one favorite that you could decisively call your favorite of the year?
I don't. I feel like it changes like every other day for me. Today though, right now, I would say my number one is Eternal Take.
Okay. Yeah.
Usually the deluxe version.
So you're talking about like the second one.
Yeah, so the one
Okay.
Lil Uzi versus the World 2. So just
Okay.
that shit, just because that's just what I've been listening to a lot this week. Kind of in, you know, I've been figuring like, oh, let me listen to like some of my favorite projects to go.
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of have an idea of what to talk about. And I haven't been able to listen to anything else. Shout out Lil Uzi. That was definitely like when I first heard it was like, oh, okay, this shit's going to be my album of the year.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, like shit changes, you know. I mean, I don't want to claim it album of the year yet.
Right. It was early. It was like March, right?
Yeah, it was like 2 weeks before like not even. I think
Right.
that was man, that was crazy. It was the weekend of like Unofficial at U. Yeah, I remember like that weekend, like going to Unofficial and like nonstop on my way there, playing that shit in my headphones even while I was there because I didn't like the music that was playing at the party.
Oh, you were that guy. Oh.
I've been at the club. I've been at clubs with my headphones, listening to like some underground grimy shit.
Oh man,
that's just who I am. I'm just
good for you. All right.
that guy. I'm like that guy, like those memes you see with the guy alone in the corner.
Oh yeah.
So,
they don't know I got Griselda in my headphones right now.
I'm like listening to like fucking SoundCloud era Cardi.
Sure. Yeah.
Betty on Betty, you know, while people are just jamming out to like, I don't know, Bad Bunny or whoever's on.
That's the thing. Like, I don't know what's popular right now. I don't go anywhere to hear music. I was talking about that on the phone with my grandma of all people this morning. I was like, yeah, it's tough. Like not knowing, you know, normally you'd go out to bars, you'd go out to clubs, you'd even just like before shows started venues, you'd hear like music being played and you'd know like, oh, this is what people are really into right now. And like, you know, there's just no like equivalent to that right now, especially for people that like normally make big like party songs. You know, like I like the Megan Thee Stallion album, but it's almost not fair that it came out this year because like all those songs are meant to be played like, you know, in big groups of people, you know, with them yelling and liquor pouring and stuff like that. And that's just like not feasible right now. So it's tough to like, I feel like all the albums I picked this year are very much not like party albums because they're not like, there were no parties, you know?
First of all, I just want to say I love Meg Thee Stallion. If Word ever gets I have a podcast where I talk about anime to Meg Thee Stallion, I want like that's like one of my dreams. It's like talk about anime with Meg Thee Stallion.
Yeah, I would love that for you, dude. I join you in whatever sort of you know, like energy dispersal I need to do to send the signal out to her to get her on this podcast. I think that would be awesome.
I'd be tweeting at her.
I've seen it. Yeah, I think that's hysterical. I tell you what killed me is like when she did that GQ thing a couple weeks ago. It was like a very good story, but I got fooled by like a fake quote of it that someone had tweeted where she was talking about the X-Men and like different comics writers from like the early 2000s that I had read their X-Men stuff. And so I thought that she had like revealed that she was also into comics and superheroes and stuff. And that's way more my bag. So I was like super excited. Google like Megan Thee Stallion X-Men. Like, is this real? And it turned out that someone had just made up the joke. And I was like, it's just slightly far enough outside of my own interest that I'm not excited that she's into anime, but I can understand where that comes from if you are an anime head and someone like Megan Thee Stallion was a superstar and like referencing the shit in lyrics. Like that's nuts.
Dude, like anime reference, like my favorite references in rap whenever I listen to rap are anime references and like wrestling references. I'm just so like I love it whenever like the rappers I listen to are also nerds.
Oh yeah, yeah.
About a lot. It's something I want to write about, but I'm just like I need like time and energies because like I want to go really in depth with it. So that's
yeah
shit out, you know.
Mm-hmm. That's what I like about the Wu-Tang Clan. They were superhero guys.
Yeah, no,
they were reading comics growing up. I think that's awesome.
Yeah, not just comics, but they're also into like those kung fu movies and all that shit. And like I really like.
That's been a great part of quarantine. I don't know about you, but watching a lot of those like late 70s, early 80s kung fu movies that pop up as Wu-Tang samples, like those are some great action movies. I feel like I've gone in and out of watching just like several of those a week every couple months.
When they did when it was RZA when he was doing a commentary for which one was it?
Oh, you checked that out?
Yeah, it was.
I never like signed up in time to see it live or whatever. I know one of them he did with Shogun Assassin, and that's a fantastic movie.
It's Shaolin versus Wu-Tang, which is
okay.
Wu-Tang Clan from.
Right.
Shaolin reference to Staten Island, and yeah, and watching that it made me realize. And like listening to the RZA talk about this shit and also talk about all the like research and shit that he did and like actually going to China and like fucking shit like that.
Mm-hmm.
I realized like, holy shit, these guys are fucking nerds.
Oh yeah. right.
They're not just like, okay, yeah, they watch like these guys are like the biggest, hugest like martial art flick nerds. And then like it made and like once like I said before, like I love it whenever rappers I listen to are nerds too. And like I feel like Wu-Tang, they're kind of like the pioneers in that. They're like the first real like nerds in hip hop. Cause like,
yeah, like Eazy-E was not a nerd, like Big Daddy Kane was not a nerd.
Rapping about, they would still like rap about, selling crack and fucking killing people, but like
they still had like the old pile of comic books back in their bedroom closet. Yeah.
Kung fu movies and like sampling them and shit. And I'm like, that's crazy. Like what? Like it just reminds me of a conversation I had a long time ago when I was doing college radio with this one rapper, Sage the 64th Wonder, who's another big rap nerd. And I asked him like, why do you think like, because it was around the time when like I felt like anime references in rap were first starting to become more prevalent. So like,
okay,
2016, when you guys had like, Lil Uzi was starting to like come onto the scene, Denzel Curry, Joey Badass.
Okay, yeah.
And I asked him like why that was, and he was like, "Well, it's simple, bro. Like when we were all little kids, like when you're a little kid, watching cartoons on Saturday mornings." You know, it's like that's what everybody did at that age. It just so happened that some of those kids grew up to be gangbangers.
Right, right.
Why I'm so fascinated by just kind of like the overlap between like nerd culture and hip hop culture, because there really is a lot of overlap, and like I kind of like that's like a narrative that I'm just really passionate about.
Oh yeah. I got to give a shout out to some of my favorite rappers in the city, the Y Foot Clan, Davis and Malky and Joshua Virtue and Ruby Watson. Some of my favorite stuff that came out this year was from that whole crew. Joshua Virtues did the tape called Jackie's House that like came out in I think either late March, early April. That's like so early quarantine to me, and it's just like so good about being like anxious about life and the systems we're in. He did like this really good tape with Malky where they just kind of did some like fun like rap tracks back and forth. He did like another tape. Malky's working on some solo shit, I think. Ruby had a pre-pandemic album, and then Davis did 2 different EPs. And he's got like a track named after Ito Ogami, who's the main character from Shogun Assassin and the Lone Wolf and Cub series. You know, he's got like he's thanking like Twin Peaks in the credits for his EP, along with like the Chris Rock show performance that D'Angelo did in 1999. Those guys are all like so great and definitely into Wu-Tang Clan, but they're also all super nerds about like anime, kung fu movies, like art films, and probably a couple other things that I just like haven't gotten to discuss with them yet. And it's fun, like picking up those references that I think are like one step further than like what you would expect to hear on somebody's rap song is like very, very rewarding, I think. And the music is just super good too. I mean, they're all like fantastic writers, but like you know, it's fun playing spot the reference with some of the stuff. And then also when you watch something else and realize like, oh shit, that's what they were talking about. Or, you know, it's kind of like referencing a sample or something like that when you come across that in a movie or another song or something. It's like, oh, I know where that was coming from now. Nice.
Watching like some of those kung fu flicks that Wu-Tang sampled, like watching like, oh shit, damn, that's the mystery of chess boxing. Holy shit.
Yeah, and that sound is just so like lodged in your brain that it's like, oh my god, that's it. That's where it's come from. Yeah.
Easter eggs. But anyway, let's get after another long tangent.
Well, all right. So I'll tell you, Y Records definitely like all their stuff is up there for me as like the best that came out this year. If I had to pick one, I'd probably go with the Jackie's House project that Joshua Virtue did. A lot of that's Bandcamp exclusive now, so you got to like throw a little cash down to hear it. Or I think you can preview it for free. Who knows? I'll tell you the other thing that I liked, and I know you're a huge fan of this guy as well. Alfredo,
Yes.
so good.
Yeah. No, I'm glad you said that because I was just gonna. I mean, obviously, I was gonna ask. You know, what are you? You asked me what my favorite album was. So I was gonna ask you what's yours. But Alfredo is like definitely in my top 3.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, other than EA, Alfredo is definitely an album where it was like when I listened to it, I'm like, this is album of the year, hands down type shit.
Yeah. I love the palette of samples that Alchemist pulls from. You know, obviously he has like a pretty distinctive sound, but I feel like in that album in particular, he had this like very specific mood of like 70s kind of psych rock in a way that kind of reminded me of The Godfather for some reason. I can't tell you why it all cohered together so well, but like it just feels like it fits so well together as a piece, the way like the production and like the little sampled interludes and then the stuff Freddie's rapping. Like even when he drops like a Tiger King reference that I wouldn't call dated, but like is very specific to like coming out in early June. It still doesn't really like take you out of the mood of this kind of like gritty mob flick thing. And I just think it's so good. I mean, I'd put it up there with most of Freddie's other projects. And of course, then just about any other rapper's project.
Shout out Freddie Gibbs, man. That's one. I'd say he's probably my favorite rapper alive right now. I'd say for like the last 2 years, you know, dropping Bandana, dropping this one. It's just Freddie Gibbs is someone who I just like. I really like. I don't like. I try to stay away from like being a fanboy for like, you know, celebrities and shit. And
yeah.
that's always a super fucking rich. I don't believe in like idolizing people. That's just crazy to me.
Sure.
like I hate stan culture, like that's just nuts. But then also just because like it's always a risky game because like sometimes these motherfuckers like will do or say something crazy and it's like, damn, I was supporting that person the whole time.
Yeah, right.
Obviously, I hope that's not the case with Freddie, but no, he's someone that I'm definitely like an unabashed fanboy of.
He's just, I mean, he's so consistently good and has been for basically the entire time he's been rapping that, you know, even if he did all of a sudden drop a project that I thought was bad, it wouldn't keep me away from listening to the next one. You know what I mean? Because he's so versatile with like the kinds of beats he tries, and like he's a good writer and he's funny. I like there's so much stuff on Alfredo that makes me laugh. The Tiger King line is great. The Michael Jordan cocaine circus is like an incredible, super funny line. I'm trying to remember some of the quotes off of that collab with Tyler, but he's very funny on that one too. Like he's just like, he checks every box for me. You know what I mean? And the other thing too, that I think is underrated, and especially now, like you don't even really have to consider when you're talking about your favorite rappers, but I've seen him several times live and he's really, really good live, which is always a plus.
Did you go to his last show when he was at the Metro for it was the Bandana tour?
Yeah, dude. I ran into Ruby Watson from the Foot Clan. We were up in the balcony together. I was with my friend Mike, and I ran into him, and I was like, "Oh, Mike, this is like this rapper guy I've been telling you about. Ruby makes some good music himself. I didn't know you were a Freddie Gibbs fan, Ruby, and we were talking about that a little bit. And so we were watching some of the show together. That was an amazing show, but it was so damn crowded. We were fools to get in as late as we did, but I was also super thrilled that he like packed that fucking venue.
Yeah. I was actually at that show. So
were you? Okay.
We have at least once. We just didn't know he existed at the time.
Yeah. And actually, now that I think about it, I have good like running into other rappers karma, because I'm remembering when I saw him last summer at Pitchfork, I ran into Cleva from Mother Nature during his set. Like she was passing through the crowd at the same time I was, and we had a chance to like say what up, and she stopped for a second on her way in. So something about watching a Freddie Gibbs show, I also run into other rappers I like. So I'm hoping that whenever he comes back around, I can keep that alive.
The rapper.
But yeah, that's like, I think he's up there with a lot of people as like, you see it, you know, the fact like Big Sean did a song with him, you know, all of a sudden, if you haven't been paying attention to his career as an indie, like it just kind of shows that people of someone like Big Sean's stature, who are like big commercial stars, like have been paying attention to his stuff and like the music he's putting out and things like that. I'm sure it helps that he's on a major label now, but it's good to see.
Yeah, no, that's something I think about a lot. In particular, Freddie is just his come up, because he has kind of, within the last couple of years, I guess, has become more, mainstream, whatever you want to call it. But like, he's been in the game since 2010. Like, he was in the same freshman class as J. Cole and Big Sean, and who else? I don't even remember who else is in that class.
I think it was 2010. I'm trying to remember who else was in the mix around that time. Maybe Crit might have been that year.
I think Crit was in that class too. I think Wiz Khalifa was in that class too. So like a lot of other guys who are.
I was gonna say that's a pretty stacked class in retrospect compared to some of the others.
Yeah, and like a lot of those guys obviously like got famous and blew up real quick, and just steadily was on his grind. He never was like, he never reached the commercial heights as like some of those other guys.
Yeah,
he's still making quality music, still making like people who still appreciate and fuck with the art of rapping. So and it just steadily grew and grew and grew, and 10 years later, I think it really isn't like, it's not really crazy to say for anyone to say that Freddie Gibbs is the best rapper alive.
Oh yeah, and he's, like I said, he's been consistently good for so long. I think what I liked about this new project too is not that he's ever like shied away from rapping about himself, but he almost got to the point where he's now rapping about parts of his past that he was a rapper during that time. Like I'm trying to remember which song it is, but he references that he was literally selling dope to rap to fund his rapping career. And I think that's like, that kind of sort of speaks to the like work that he's put in, you know what I mean? Like at a certain point, that's how long he's been working at it, is that he was working on his rap when it was making him negative money,
Yeah, no, and I think it was Skinny Shug that he mentioned that.
Yes, thank you.
I know it's that song too, where he also mentioned where like he sold crack to the person who sold it again to his uncle, who ended up overdosing it off of it. So it's just like, damn, that's just like he's just being real. He's just being authentic, and that's another thing what I really like about Freddie. Like he has like, I think most people just know him for like just his bars on top of bars, where he just raps his ass off, like 1985, just making punchlines and everything like that. But what really resonates me with Freddie Gibbs is his moments of vulnerability.
Mm-hmm.
Talks about, he just reflects on life, because then it makes me reflect. Granted, I've never experienced, that type of lifestyle that he has. It's like complete 180, but it still makes me reflect, and I think
That's like the sign of good writing right there, like if it's crossing to people that obviously can't relate to it on a material level, you relate on an emotional level. It's like Jay-Z on the Blueprint and some of that stuff, like, and actually Ghostface is who I think, obviously not in terms of delivery, but I think sort of having a lot of that emotion in his verses is someone that I think there's clearly like a lineage between the two. And I'm not as like deep into Ghostface as I would like to be, but he's also clearly like of another era compared to the current run that Gibbs is on.
then also, other than Freddie Gibbs, I would say another one of my favorite rap albums too was also Jay Electronica's his album. I can't believe I'm blanking on the name.
Now, you talking about the one you did with Jay-Z, or are you talking about the old one that finally came out?
Oh no, I'm talking about the one he did with Jay-Z.
Okay, yeah, Written Testimony. I like that one too.
Yeah, that was another one too. I talked about it on the last episode with my producer Julian, how it dropped out on the same time as like Lil Uzi's Eternal Attain.
Yeah, very different options when that. I think it might have been the same weekend.
Yeah, and it was before COVID, and it was like that was definitely an album. Like I remember listening to it and liking it, but
Mm-hmm.
it had to grow on me for sure. Like I don't think I really fully appreciated it for what it was uh until after quarantine happened. I kind of went through some shit, and had to, like I said earlier, had to experience life and then listen to it again, and just kind of like, okay, this shit is like, it hits on a deeper level now that I've kind of, I guess, found my own spirituality, kind of had my own little existential crisis, because that's like kind of like a lot of things that he talks about in that album.
And specifically with Jay Electronica, I mean, he's a practicing Muslim himself as well, if I remember correctly. Unless he's just using a lot of references in the lyrics. But I thought he was a legit member of the faith.
Yeah, no, he's part of the Nation of Islam.
Okay.
I actually got some family that's a part of the nation, so shout out what else? But yeah, it's kind of funny too, because like both him and Freddie are like Muslims, and like I feel like their rap styles couldn't be more different.
Yeah, that's interesting. You kind of, I mean, I don't necessarily like look for religion in my rap songs, but it's also something that you wouldn't necessarily notice if you were looking for it sometimes. But yeah, that didn't even occur to me as like a commonality. But yeah, that's obviously a huge thing between the two of them. But I think also, though, part of what I like about Freddie is there are very few people that you could put him on a song with, and I wouldn't be like, okay, that could maybe work. Like I think he's very flexible when it comes to the music that he can rap over and stuff like that. So like, I can't see a Jay Electronica song ever happening, but if they did, I'm sure it'd be pretty good, if not great or fantastic or whatever.
Those two are definitely like the two, Alfredo and then Written Testimony, are like the two albums that I would like to see, win the Grammy for Best Rap Album. I would say I'm more of an Alfredo fan. But I'll be cool if Written Testimony won. Speaking of Grammy noms though, that is actually a question that I had for later, but I guess since I brought it up now, might as well ask it. What do you feel about the Grammy nomination?
Man, I don't know. I feel like everybody that pays attention to music like pays attention to the Grammys by default, because I don't know. I like, at the end of the day, I watch it almost every year because you end up seeing like a whole bunch of performances in a row, and like especially this last year, I remember very vividly with it also being the day that Kobe Bryant died. I just remember like that whole day that happened of me like everything I was doing throughout that day and then watching the Grammys. It was just such a surreal combination, but there are very few opportunities, I think, other than award shows and some like very, basic ass programming like The Voice that you actually just get a whole bunch of music on TV anymore, you know? So like, I think baseline, I'm happy the Grammys exist, and I think it's cool that like they get a whole award show to do their thing. I think the problem is that like they don't necessarily have good taste all the time, and they're probably netting out in the long run to have pretty like racist and sexist taste at times, which is not great. Obviously, that's a huge problem. So it's like I want them to do the right thing in terms of how they nominate people and be a representative of like the actual music that is out there. But I think a really valid point that I saw several independent artists raise on their social media after the Grammy nominations came out, and some people like The Weeknd or Halsey or whoever thought that they had been snubbed for one reason or another. And I guess I will step aside to say that like I did really like The Weeknd's album, so I'm surprised he wasn't nominated. That does seem kind of suspicious. But nevertheless, you know, I saw several indie artists say something to the effect of like, look, I never thought I was going to get a Grammy, right? Like, because I operate independently and my label is small. We don't have the money to put ads in everybody's newspaper and, you know, yada, yada, yada. So that was never an option for me that I even considered. So, you know, maybe cool it about not getting nominated this year. So I think I'm sympathetic to sort of the majority of artists in the regard of like, look, they're never going to get it 100% right. They simply can't, you know, and I think ultimately I'm intrigued to see like who's going to perform, I think, more than like who actually wins the awards.
Okay, that's an interesting nuance to take that. Because like for me personally, I fucking hate the Grammy. I hate award shows in general. But that's also because I'm like, for the longest time, until recently, I was like the biggest music snob.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you know, like I said earlier, like I'm in the like I'll be in the club listening to shit.
And like you're never gonna pick something up because, you know, or like tune into an album or whatever because you heard it won Grammys. You know what I mean? Like that's not, you're too beyond the Academy to get anything out of the Grammy nominees. You know, it's like when people win Grammys, it's big news for like, you know, people that don't pay attention as much as you because they're like, oh, this must be a really good album, you know, as they walk past it in Target or something.
Yeah, no, I think the last time I was probably like excited for the Grammys or invested in the Grammys was 2016 when like Chance, you know, was like nominated for Coloring Book and won. That was a cool moment. I think just as a young Chance the Rapper fan, being from Chicago, all that shit. They were on that. That was a cool time to for Chicago music in general during that time.
Yeah, 2016 was like a good time. It was like exciting to see him win that stuff. I mean, and then I think about like last year watching Tyler the Creator's performance, which was really cool, like very distinctive, clearly like a product of his own kind of design and things like that. And, you know, kind of the same feeling of like, oh, I remember like this dude's music many years ago now and how far he's come. Like, I feel like you end up clinging to the moments throughout, you know, the years of different Grammy ceremonies and things like that, more so than like, yes, like my favorite Grammy award winning album or whatever.
Favorite Grammy Award winning album, The Heist by Macklemore and Ryan Lewis.
You know, Macklemore made like a decent little album, you know, like, but it's unfortunate that now it's a footnote to Kendrick for the rest of eternity. Sorry, that's the Grammys' fault, you know, like they messed that one up. Macklemore is going to have to deal with that forever. Sorry.
And yeah, poor guy, because like even he felt bad for it. He was like, "Why did they give this to me?" So like, poor. That was probably like the one time where like I think I've ever seen someone actually be disgraced of like their white privilege.
He owned it in public, that's for sure. Yeah. Thrift Shop was popping. You know, that was like a fun song. That little White Walls beat with Schoolboy Q is like a pretty good little beat. That Ryan Lewis cooked up. I don't know. I'm not like a Macklemore defender by any means, but like I shouldn't have to be. You know what I'm saying? Macklemore didn't really do anything wrong. He just beat Kendrick because the Academy's stupid. You know.
I think like I'm not trying to hate on Macklemore. It's fun, like you said, it's a footnote in history, and it's just funny to me. And I think like just like the fact that like he texted Kendrick about it, like damn, this guy really feels so awful about it.
And now I'm trying to think, wasn't it like the next album, like immediately after that he did the like old school joint where he got like Grandmaster Flash and Biz Markie and Africa Bambaataa and all the like old school New York dudes on it?
I don't even know because I never listened to
I'm gonna have to look this up, but I swear, like the next album, he went all in on like, yeah, I made like an early '80s like New York hip hop song, and I got all these, you know, legendary guys to pop up on it. So I think he maybe like overcompensated a little bit.
That's the word I was looking for. Is over.
Yeah.
That's exactly what it was.
Yeah, man. But I would love to see like this year, you know, assuming they like have the ceremony and stuff. You know, like Megan Thee Stallion has been doing some amazing like award show performances lately when she's been invited. So I hope she gets to like do that at the Grammys. I think The Weeknd is supposed to perform. We'll see if that happens because he's pissed off. But like he's been doing great performances. Like I would love to see that keep going. That's the thing. Like the rap nominations, I think were like interesting, but I think it was also pretty clear that like everything skewed very like not old school, but literally older. Like, isn't it one of the oldest? I think it's something like the oldest selection of artists that have been nominated for the category. It's like an average age of like 40 or something.
I think the young person in that category is like 35, 36. I don't even know who.
Maybe Big Sean.
Big Sean wasn't nominated.
Oh, he wasn't? Okay, I expected he would be. You know, and it's like cool. Like I love that Freddie Gibbs is nominated for a Grammy. I love that, you know, Jay Electronica is nominated for a Grammy. There was probably like some weak albums in the mix, but like all told, like, yeah, fine, whatever. Like good for them. You know, like we'll see what happens, I guess.
Really cool with Freddie and Jay Leck. Everyone knows it was Nas.
Which I never listened to. Yeah.
Yeah, the only people I'm about to call out my boy. The only people who listened to that album were LeBron James and my boy Louis. Literally the only two people on earth who like played that album that I know. So Louis,
he's in good company.
LeBron. That's the thing though. But and then Nas, Royce da 5'9", and then also D Smoke, who is another guy who I guess kind of like similar to Macklemore. Like I just kind of like feel bad for because it's like, damn, like D Smoke when that album dropped. I remember like people, you know, talking about it for like a week.
Mm-hmm.
And I honestly forgot D Smoke existed after that. I remember listening to that album actually around the time it dropped, and you know, I know his whole gimmick at the time was like being able to rap in Spanish.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember listening to the album, and I don't want to act like my Spanish is perfect. My shit's super choppy. But even like me listening to that and listening to the Spanish, I'm like, this is some like third grade ass level Spanish.
Yo, I said that. Okay, so I watched all of Rhythm and Flow with my girlfriend when it was running last year, and we had a great time watching it. Like, I think it was a very fun performance or like a competition series. But he like that was like a big thing, you know, as he got to be like, you know, one of the top 6, 5, 4 remaining finalists. Was like at one point it was a big thing where all of a sudden he did like a bilingual song where he had a verse in Spanish. And, you know, I am not anything close to fluent in speaking Spanish, but I knew most of the words he used. And the other thing that I was pointing out is like, look, a lot of words end with the same sounds in Spanish. It's arguably much easier to rhyme in that language than in English. Like, yeah, it's like cool that he did the switch, but like,
yeah,
he's making things easier for himself as a rapper by doing that.
That whole gimmick is overhyped, and so like it was cool like the first couple times, but then it was like 3, 4, 5. So like it's like almost every song at certain point is like, okay, can he just get back to just like I said, it's just like real third grade level ass. Like I said, even someone like me who has super choppy Spanish was just very unimpressed by it.
Yeah.
It's weird to see like I said, like people talking about it for a week. So I remember seeing people like gassing it, and I'm like, and yeah.
But what is he, like Sir's cousin or something like that? You know, like he's one of those guys, like I'm sure a lot of people knew him through the industry or like the label put out an ad or something. And like, yeah, the Academy went for it. Like, cool. He's like a Kendrick-ish type guy and they like him. Fine. But like, I don't know, man. I feel like, especially with like the end of the year coming where everybody's like putting out their lists and stuff, I'm like very excited to dig through those, but I feel like I'm way less interested in like what's number 1 versus number 2 versus 3, you know, like the ranking of it. compared to just like finding new stuff. You know, like it's the same thing with the Grammys. Like I'm excited for whoever wins. Like the nominees even seem fine, but I'm also not like, oh, pissed that somebody didn't get nominated.
I just wanted Lil Uzi to be nominated, to be honest.
I'm surprised by that, actually, now that you say that, because he seems like one of those guys who is big enough on a major label, makes a lot of money, that you'd think he had fans throughout the Academy. But
Yeah, like I said, it was my favorite album of the year, and I think it was a lot of people's like it was a super popular album, Eternal Take. So like I was definitely like, of any artist that was snubbed, that was the one I was surprised the most.
okay.
Like, yo, what? Like, okay, it's like I said, like I'm an unabashed fanboy for Freddie Gibbs. I'm also an unabashed fanboy for Lil Uzi.
I would love to, and I mean, like, I know people say it every year. It's like, we need our own award shows. Like every time the Grammys come around, they mess it up. And like, there is like, you know, BET does awards, like the Soul Train Awards. Like, I don't think there's specifically a hip hop awards show yet, but like there are plenty of other award shows that focus more on the stuff. So I don't know that necessarily like people need to launch new stuff, but I do think it would also be good if everyone collectively didn't put so much weight on the Grammys as like fans of rap or hip hop. You kind of have to at some point be like, all right, well, I know that that's not gonna.
Yeah, that's why, like I
be
said,
reflective.
I stopped caring about award shows just because it's like it's all arbitrary. It's all like it's always a shit that like I don't even listen to. So I'm like, why am I going to be invested in it?
Yeah. But like I'm intrigued to know more so like the people I know that are into music. It's like, oh, what is your favorite? You know, yada. Like I'm gonna go back to Lil Uzi later this afternoon because I didn't listen to music enough. I didn't listen to it enough for me to call my number one album. So I better like spend some more time with it. You know what I mean? Like, or even like new albums that I feel like I learn about anytime anybody like posts lists of their favorite stuff or whatever around this time of year. Like I don't know, I think it's very easy for people to get like weird and like competitive about stuff and get all up in their heads about like, is this like ranking really accurate to myself or whatever. It's like, just put your list out there, man. Like some people will comb through it, like maybe they'll find some new stuff, you know. Like I love that. I think that's so fun. It's very pure, you know.
Yeah, and I will say that I think Lil Uzi saying Balenci 15 times was a cultural shift.
Do you have a bar of the year? I have a bar of the year.
Balenci 15 times.
Valencia. Okay. I am a huge fan of the iPhone song by Rico Nasty. And I really love the line "smoking so much gas I forgot to put my mask on." That like really hit for the whole year. And I truly don't know if she wrote that pre-pandemic and it just happened to fit or what, but either way, that's just like, that's a really good line. That one really works for me.
That's another artist who like I really hope next year just like takes off. Just because she deserves it. She's been putting in a lot of work for a minute, and she's been one of my favorite rappers for sure.
She's another one that has like a very cool like visual style to basically just about everything she puts out at this point. You know, and like that's we can move on from the Grammys by all means, but like I think that's more so what I get excited about is like if someone like Rico Nasty or Tyler the Creator gets nominated for a Grammy, then it's like they might get the chance to like put on a big fucking show on live TV, and who knows what it'll look like. And like I think that's the most exciting part about it for me, is that idea of like people with actually very cool ideas all of a sudden getting like a much bigger platform.
And then just moving on from the Grammys, I also, one of the reasons why I invited you on to this podcast is because
Thank you.
tweet around October where you're like, I've been covering a lot of, you know, music across different Chicago genres. Be ashamed if I talk about it on someone's podcast.
Sometimes you got to be the squeaky wheel to get some grease. So thank you for listening to that. Yeah. Yeah, man, it's been cool this year. You know, I feel like especially within the like second half of the year, like I was very busy like covering a lot of different local artists, and especially some like really young kids. Like DCG Brothers are a group that I'm really excited about from Austin that I think they've now relocated to LA semi-permanently. But you know, like one of them is 18 and the other one just turned 17, I think. I might be wrong on that, but they're all, I think, at the most like 21, 22. And then Lil Easy's another guy that I interviewed recently who's from Homewood, and I think he's 18 or 19, just graduated high school this past spring as his like music career started to take off. And then I also, like on the flip side of that, I was talking to Twilight Tone, who's a producer who has like a long history going back to like the early days of Chicago hip hop with like No ID and Common, and now has sort of switched lanes to focus more on like producing his own sort of like instrumental like dance hip hop music. And then, you know, in the middle of that, I talked to Fireman, who is someone who's worked extensively with Vic Mensa and has been part of like Malik Yousef's sort of like songwriting crew. He produced like some early tracks with Lil Durk. He was a big bop guy. He was making bop music in the early 2000s or early 2010s, before like being a part of like drill early on and make his own thing. And so like doing all this stuff like within a close time span, like it was really interesting to just sort of see like the commonalities of like where people started listening to music and what they paid attention to, like, and especially talking to the young kids, like, you know, realizing something like Herbo is basically like the most important musician out of Chicago over the last decade, probably. Like,
oh, thank you for saying that.
And like, sorry, go ahead.
I was saying, dude, I'm a huge Herb fan, and I've always been like, yo, like, obviously, like, Chief Keef is like, you know, the I don't know how to describe it. Like, I guess, you know, the main pioneer that kind of like opened the gates. But I feel like you said, for the decade, in terms of longevity, I feel like me personally, Herbo has been more important just because like of that longevity. That he's just been more no disrespect to Chief Keef. Chief Keef's amazing. But
Yeah, totally.
Herbo's just been more consistent and steadily still rising to new levels. I'm a huge, you know, Herb fan.
And I don't think I would have realized the extent of his influence until I started talking to some kids who, like, you know, if you're 18 now, like you were probably 9 or 10, like Herb might have been the first guy you were into that you knew was a guy from Chicago that was a rapper that you followed. Like, I talked to Lil Easy about this. He like growing up had connections so that he was getting leaked, like unreleased stuff from Herbo, but it wasn't even when he was G Herbo or Lil Herb. It was when he was Lil Herbie. Before that was like his first rap name. He was getting this unreleased stuff, and like, you know, Easy was talking about having an iPod full up of like unreleased stuff or like stuff on his phone, and like because he was like kind of nerding out on being a fan of this guy who, you know, was from Chicago, was making a lot of noise and stuff like that. And like, I like his music, and I pay attention to what he does, and I've been listening to him for a long time. He's not personally one of my like favorites to come out or anything like that. I don't listen to him nearly as much as I do other rappers, but just like after talking to several artists now that are making their own music and like doing stuff in really cool ways, it's like so clear that like he's just such a huge deal, you know, in the same way that like I think people, now that Chief Keef has left Chicago, have sort of realized like, oh, he's such a huge fucking deal. The way that like Durk is also getting a lot of that treatment this year, with the Drake feature and stuff like that. And that's what like is so, I mean, it's obviously a fucked up situation 6 ways around, but like part of the thing that's so sad about King Von's death is I think his new album was the best thing he'd made yet. And he was like working with some interesting people in making, you know, kind of twisting his sound in interesting ways, and was getting more and more popular. You know, I feel like one thing that's easy to forget, especially if someone like you or me who's been paying attention to the stuff for the better half of like a decade, is that like these dudes are not that much older than us. You know, I think Chief Keef is like, Chief Keef is my age. I think he's like 25, 26. And, you know, there are plenty of rappers now who come out at age 24, 25 and are huge superstars. And so it's like, I think, especially if things like Dirk's Drake feature and some of these other like sort of big spotlight things that are happening for them where they're working with major labels and people are paying attention, like I think a lot of these guys who started out on the national level 10 years ago as young teenagers are now, I think, have the potential to be like future level type rock star rappers for the, you know, foreseeable future. I would be very excited for that to happen. I think a lot of things need to change in Chicago so that like they could come back and actually play the shows without the cops hassling them.
Yeah,
but it would be nice if that was kind of how that turned around for this, you know, generation of rappers.
Yeah, no, it's just a shame how Chief Keef is essentially banned from Chicago. Like, that's something that's just crazy when you think about. Like, even when he had the concert where it was just his hologram and it wasn't even Chicago, it was like,
and they shut down the hologram. Yeah,
It's a fucked up situation. I remember watching.
Herbo's dealt with that too. He's had shows shut down, and obviously he's got some other issues that were recently emerged. So we'll see how that shakes out for him. But like he's had shows shut down in the past. I'm not even sure like if Vaughn got to do a show in Chicago before he was living in Atlanta at all. Like I'm not even sure if he even had a chance to. It's a real shame that especially some of these artists that have been so popular and so innovative, like also can't even like do shows in their hometown.
It's just racism, plain and simple. It's actually funny that you said, not funny, but like coincidentally you said that about Herb, how playing shows. I remember before we started this, I was just telling Julian about because he noticed my Valet shirt, and I told him the first time I ever heard of Valet was I went to it was a concert, Lil Bibby and Herb headliner.
Okay.
And I remember like it was Fake Sure Drive was the one that was like they like sponsored it along with Red Bull. And I remember one time I was able to meet Andrew Barber sometime after the fact, sometime show, and I don't even remember what I asked him, but like we were just talking, and I think I just asked him like, "Yo, like I really like that show that you threw with Herb and Bibby, like just because like I said I've never seen Herb in Chicago," and he was like, "Oh, bro, like we're actually really surprised to get approved for that at the Metro, just because like obviously like just the history and like they're like it was kind of like close to the call, like whether or not
yeah."
And yeah, and I did low key almost get into the fight at that show. I'm not gonna lie.
So I got a little ready. Yeah. I mean, I think too, like part of I fucking miss shows, man. I feel like I've said that everyone I've spoken to all year, but that like sucks period this whole year. It's killing me not to be able to like go see performances. But I feel like especially too, it seemed like things were starting to shift a little bit this February with the All-Star weekend. I know like Polo did a huge show at the Metro where he brought out a bunch of other local dudes. There were all sorts of shows and events and stuff that I think all went off without a hitch, and people were so excited to like be in Chicago and like feel the energy. And I feel like that could have really turned into like this awesome springboard for shows, through spring and summer and into the following year. And then obviously none of that really changed anything. But, I think it was, if nothing else, like a really, great sign of these people being able to perform in their hometowns, hopefully going forward.
I actually went to that Polo G show.
Did you make it in? Oh, how was it?
It was awesome, bro. It was honestly like one of the best, like just that day in general. It was a weird day. Like it was one of the best days and also most anxiety inducing days I've ever experienced in my life.
Okay.
What's it called? But yeah, but like the show itself, it was kind of funny too because it was an all ages show. So there were like a lot of little kids there.
Yeah, right.
So like motherfuckers always try to smoke weed at concerts. And bro, the security was on it that day. Like I've never seen security like be on it. But I think it's us because it was an all ages show.
Yeah, yeah.
I remember like afterwards, like a friend of mine who was also there showed me a video where he was trying to record the stage, and then like the person in front of him put their kid on their shoulders.
Oh, that's funny. Like some, like Wiggles show type shit.
Like it was just an all ages show with like drill rappers, and it was just like a bunch of little kids there. It was just funny, but like it was just cool, and it was also a daytime show. It was like my first time going to a concert.
Oh yeah, didn't it start at like 1 or 2 or something like that?
By the time it ended, it was like maybe 5:30, 6 o'clock, and it felt weird.
It's like getting out of a movie.
Yeah. It's
like when you come out of the movie theater and it's dark out. You're like, what happened?
Like I'm so used to like going to shows like after midnight that I'm like
right.
After like I think like my routine post concert, like this is another thing I miss about going to concerts is also the doing shit after the concert. And
yeah,
it's always like I'll usually be some type of fucked up, so like go to Taco Bell to get something to eat, and then charging my phone, and then like while like at there until like I'm at a decent percentage, and then like taking the train home and not getting home till like 2 or 3 a.m. And but like the fact that it ended at like 6 o'clock, it was like, oh fuck, like I still have a whole day ahead of me. Like what the fuck?
Yeah, what do I do now? Right. The only time I saw Polo, he replaced Rich the Kid at Lollapalooza. I think this would have been Lolla 2018 maybe. So like right when Pop Out was coming out. Or would that have been 2019? Either way, recently. he replaced Rich the Kid at Lala last second, and I was like, okay, yeah, amazing upgrade. Why was he not on the bill from the start? I was like, why would you book Rich the Kid instead of Polo G? But again, like Lollapalooza, they do fine, but like they're not a hip hop festival. I know that. They're gonna do okay with the rappers they book. Especially local ones. That's what kills me too. Like I'm really hoping next year. I think with everybody being cooped up, you see the difference between artists like, the Post Malones of the world who have been able to like cavort around to their album release parties and their LA mansions and shit versus the actual local artists that are like sticking around in town and doing activism shit or even just like staying in town, period. I hope that kind of turns into a renewed like communal show together attitude whenever they can come back safely, whether it's this summer or the next summer or something. Like imagine if there was a festival that was like straight up just local people and all the best like Chicago rock band, Chicago rappers, Chicago jazz players and Chicago like electronic producers, like in some neighborhood or some public park or whatever. Like, I know that's not going to happen because there are these other festivals that have way much more money tied up in them and stuff. But like some of the best shows I've ever seen in Chicago are shows where I found an opener that is also local, and then you end up following them, blah, 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 and it expands from there. I would love to see, even if it's across genres or scenes or whatever, like people just doing shows at home with each other ASAP, once it's safe. Plus, then it would be more shows for me to go to, so that would be very good.
I just miss shows too. Like it's so weird because I always had like mixed feelings about going to shows because I've always had like this introverted nature to me and like social anxieties and like I think I tweeted not too long ago how I went to John Walt Day last year and had a panic attack. That's one of my favorite experiences or most memorable experiences just because of like how vivid it was. Like it was like one of the best concerts I've ever been to.
You're talking about last year's John Wall Day, right after they had dropped not right after, but the same year they had dropped the group album.
Yeah.
Such a good show.
Yeah. So shout out Saba and the rest of Pivot Gang. Those guys know how to throw a fucking show. I think Saba has been one rapper who I think I've been to the most shows of him. Of most shows of any artist, probably Saba, just because like I've literally just lost count of how many times I've seen him live.
Yo, and he's another guy. Obviously, he was never huge to the way that like Chief Keef was huge when he first started out. But like Saba and the Pivot Gang guys to some extent are, I think, another great example of that idea of like obviously we've been paying attention to him for a long time since he's been a teenager, but like he's not that old and is just not like continues to get more and more popular. Like I would love for him to be as big as someone like J. Cole 5 years from now. You know what I mean? Because I think he's absolutely like. He's got the production talent. He's got the sound. He's got the writing, all this stuff. Like, I feel like there's going to be kind of like another wave of like that generation of rappers. I think it's just going to kind of keep ascending up in popularity. Or I'm optimistic, at least. I'm going to do my best to spread the word on them so that they do, I guess, if nothing else.
Yeah, I think it's just one of those things where it's like you have like some rappers who just kind of like become overnight sensations, but then like they kind of like fade away within like a year or two, and then other rappers, it's like almost one or the other, like nothing barely anything in between, and then you have the other side is just like these guys who just steadily
that build up, that just keep they get better each time they come out, and they take their time.
Who would you say is maybe a local artist in Chicago? It doesn't have to be specific to rap, because I'm actually trying to expand my palette outside rap and hip hop, because this summer was like the first time I took a long break from listening to rap. So that's actually the reason why I actually haven't listened to as much new like rap albums that I would usually do, just because like I decided to like
try something new.
Yeah, and so I ended up listening to like a lot of fucking. This is around time I started getting some meditation. So a lot of the Dalai Lama's meditation album.
Okay, nice.
Dalai Lama was actually my third most streamed artist.
I was gonna say, was he in your top 5 for the year? Oh, that's funny.
I listened to him more than I listened to Freddie Gibbs.
Hey, if that's what's getting you through your day, man, that's great.
And my number 5 artist was actually the Seatbelts, which is a Japanese band who they did the soundtrack for Cowboy Bebop.
Oh, nice.
So like I listen to like a lot of anime stuff. I've mentioned this before. So like that was the type of music I was listening to. I was listening to like a lot of like instrumental shit,
Okay.
like more, I guess, more vibey music. So I'm definitely trying to explore that sound. So with that being said, like who are some Chicago artists that are on the rise for you?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, there's kind of that whole generation of people that have been doing it for a while that I would love to see them like keep, blowing up more and more, like Keith and Dirk and Herbo and Saba and No Name and all that whole kind of like collection of people. But I will say, I like this year listened to more rock music than I have in recent years, which is like kind of a fun change of pace for me. And especially like there is just so much like great indie rock coming out of Chicago. Um, Obviously, I'm not the first person to say that by any means, but there was just like one of the last shows that I saw was Beach Bunny at the Metro, and I followed them for almost their whole career. And like, I just think they've been getting better and better as they go. I know they've got something new coming out in January, but their first album was out in February of this year and was like really, really great. Just like super poppy, like power pop rock songwriting that just really, really great. The band's super good, and Lily Trafilio is just like an amazing singer-songwriter, keeps getting better. So Beach Bunny's awesome. Big fan of them. Also really loved Ohm's album this year. I've been into them for a couple years now. It's a duo. Macy Stewart and Seema Cunningham are the names of the performers. And then they usually have a drummer, Matt Carroll, performing with them. They have like a very interesting backstory of like being involved in music in Chicago for 10 to 15 years, like since they were in high school. Macy Stewart was actually in Kids These Days with Vic Mensa in the early 2010s, which was like sort of a jazz rap band that Jeff Tweedy produced their album. And then eventually they split. Vic went solo and did Internet Tape, and now Macy is stuck around doing all sorts of stuff. And they pop up working with all sorts of different like musicians and across genres and stuff. But as a group, they make very cool like art rock kind of. I kind of describe it as St. Vincent-y music is usually kind of how I describe it. Like they both play guitar, lots of like heavy riffs, but then there's also a song that's like very out there, sort of just instrumental, like experimental sound. And then the last song immediately afterwards is this very sweet, almost like 50s girl group love song sounding things, like very versatile sound. That's Ohm, they rock. And then the other band that I really, really like this year that I want to give a shout out to is Deeper. They had a really good debut album a couple years ago, and they were silent for a little bit, and then they just put out this album called Auto Pain in like early April. So they totally got screwed in terms of like they didn't get to do a release show. There was like panic around their release date and stuff like that. But this album Auto Pain is really, really good. I know there's some painful backstory. I believe they lost a band member like in the process of recording. I believe a member of the band died. And so the process of writing the album was obviously pretty difficult, and I think engages with some of the like grief and self-doubt that they were dealing with across that. But the music itself is very kind of like wiry post-punk, like kind of up-tempo, like jittery sounding. And it's really, really cool, like alt-rock sound that I really, really like. So that was like the three big like rock records I got into this year. But even then, like Rat Boys is awesome. Big fan of them. Like kind of heavy, like 90s alt rock sound. Very like fits in a playlist with Beach Bunny. Rookie's awesome. They do like 70s classic rock, like the shit you'd hear on like The Loop or The Drive back in the day. I think they have like 6 dudes in their band, and they all perform in like mechanic jumpsuits. They're super fun. And then there's records that like I know I haven't gotten to that I'm sure I'll enjoy when I get there. Like I know VD Lightbody is supposed to be fantastic, and Waxahachie is another band that got ranked really high in a bunch of lists that I haven't gotten to. Like again, like that's the stuff they get excited about at the end of the year. Is like, I know I've missed some albums this year, I'd have to think about rappers, man. I don't know. I love that Y Records crew. I'm really excited about the DCG brothers and like what they keep doing. And then it's like a lot of people that I think are like, I don't know that I've necessarily dropped projects that I've loved or haven't dropped projects at all, but like I know they're gonna drop a good one soon, or they will on the next one. Like Brittany Carter's super talented. I'm excited for whatever the next like thing that MF Mello drops. I know Quarry's working on something. Can't wait to hear that whenever that's finished. Obviously, if him and Slime wanted to put some more tracks out, I wouldn't be disappointed. But either of them separately, I'm hyped about. I also would really love to hear another project from Mother Nature. I know they put something out this year, but it was not super long, and I know they've got some more stuff in the works. So I'm excited to see kind of what comes next for them too. I don't know, man. I feel like I should go through like the archives of my little playlist just to see like all the rappers I'm forgetting about. But Karion dropped a great EP recently that I really liked. Um, who else have I listened to? Oh, Serengeti. He's been putting out great stuff. Like Ajay was amazing with Kenny Segal, but uh, he's put out a bunch of stuff since. I could rattle off names, I feel like, forever. But yeah, it's been a great year, man. I don't know. Like I think obviously I've listened to stuff from other cities, and there's a bunch of other albums I've liked from outside of Chicago, but like I've been plenty busy just like the stuff coming out of the city, which makes it even worse that I can't go see all the shows for these album release projects or whatever. So yeah, it's been a great year for music here, man. I don't know.
Yeah, no, absolutely. One of my, I would say my top three albums of the year, along with EA and Freddie Gibbs Alfredo, is H. Sonny's Golden Child. I
Yes,
always
that's another great project.
gas up. That's it's always fun to gas him up, not just because he's one of my favorite rappers, but he's just like he's like a friend. So it's
Yeah, yeah.
like cool for me. It's like damn, like I'm really like friends with like one of
Yeah, man, that's awesome. And he's got I was excited. I knew his stuff just from like singles and other projects he put out, but I was excited that he was working with Vince Ash, who is a really talented guy out of Indiana, and is on my friend Jeff's label, on the POW Recordings label that he put together a couple of years back. I really like Vince Ash's previous project, Vito, and then his new one that came out this year was amazing. Also, too short. Also, you know, I think it was only like 20 minutes, but much like the Hate Sunny project, just like super good.
Yeah, no, I was so like geeked to see them work together actually, because like I'm trying to think how I heard. I think I saw Vince Ash. I think Passion Wise tweeted about it, and so I just figured, fuck it, let me check it out. I was blown away by that project. And then the fact that he's Indiana, so he's like right next state over. So
Yeah, yeah.
oh, this dude, and then like a couple weeks after that, I see him and Sonny working together. I'm like, oh shit, this is cool as hell. So yeah, shout out Vince Ash. If people haven't heard of him.
Yeah, you know, the other guy that I was like really excited about and still am, but I want to know when the project's dropping is Wemmy Mo.
Yeah,
Put out so many great singles like beginning of the year, tail end of 2019. And I know he's got a project he's been working on for months and months. I have no idea where it's at. I haven't talked to him in a while, but the singles were so good and he was on like such a tear that I would really love to know like whatever project he's got working on, what it sounds like now and when it's going to come out and stuff like that. Cause I think he's another guy that has just like put out really consistently good stuff, like singles here and there and videos and stuff. And I think, once he has like a whole project, I think people really, really get into it,
Have you listened to the Stranded Civilians album?
I gotta look it up. I think I've heard their stuff. I like them. I don't know if I heard their whole project. When did it drop?
Or like I want to say sometime in the summer. I can't remember the exact date.
I know I've been tuned into their stuff. I'd have to double check if I heard the whole project. Yeah, they're another like really strong group, and I think they did a track with Wemmy, right?
Yeah, Femi, and obviously that's another like duo that like I'm like really good, close personal friends with. So I'm like anytime I can support them any way I can.
Yeah, Nirvana. This is a good project. Yeah.
Yeah, no. So that's actually another one of my like. There's a time, like I say, during the time frame where I wasn't listening to rap. Rap albums I was listening to was theirs, Nirvana, and then also. So yeah, so that's definitely was one of my favorites for the year.
Yo, the other local project you might like. Are you up on Jay Wade and Cloud Boy?
I'm not, but I'm intrigued just off the strength of the name Cloud Boy.
Cloud Boy is the producer. Jay Wade is the rapper. Their project's name Ozymandias, like the poem / mythological person. And it just came out. I think it was last month, maybe beginning of December. But they've got like a whole crew together called Creative Mansion. They put out a couple projects together this year. With I believe it's all like Cloud Boy's production, Jay Wade rapping. And this recent one, Ozymandias, is like, it's only like 25 minutes, it's 12 songs, but it's like really good, kind of like soul sampley, but also with some of the like more contemporary like trap drum kits and things like that. Like I would definitely say it fits into sort of the zone of like Wemmy Mo and that Strandy Civilians project of you know, like kind of upbeat rap, not quite like, you know, soul sampling old school rap, but definitely kind of like a kind of a peppy attitude to it. And yeah, those guys are really cool. Very excited about like the stuff they've been working on, and I think they have like a whole other clique with them too beyond just the two of them. But yeah, Jay Wade and Cloud Boy, those guys are good too. Big fans.
Cloud Boy just captures that name, just captures me just because I'm fascinated. I just love clouds in general. So like anything that has to do with clouds, I'm like, fuck yeah.
I don't know where you got it, but it sounds to me like an old like an NES game or something, right? Like it's just no questions asked. You're Cloud Boy, and now you're jumping through the clouds.
And also a recent artist who I just got, or an artist I just got recently into is Serena Isioma.
I am slipping on listening to that project because I know Lior did something about it. I know you've been talking about trying to get them on the podcast, if I remember correctly. I have not heard the music. Is it worth checking out?
I was slipping on her music for a minute too, just because, you know, that's a name that I kept on hearing a lot throughout the year, but
Yeah.
never got around to listening to. But then once they dropped their recent EP, what's it called? When the Leo sunsets,
Mm-hmm.
I checked it out, blew my mind. I was like, yo,
Okay, I'm gonna have to put that like the top of my listening list here.
Serena Isioma is like now like instantly like my new favorite artist. I think they're gonna like take over the world within like the next year or two.
All right, yeah, I'm bookmarking that. I'm gonna check that out later today. That's like part of what I'm excited about being done with some writing too, is like I don't have to listen to stuff because I'm writing about it. Like again, I can catch up on stuff that I feel like I missed throughout the year. So yeah, I'm excited. I got that bookmarked for sure. I'm gonna have to check that out later tonight.
All right, so for sure. So before we end this conversation, just give me top 5 albums of the year.
Ooh, okay. All right. So number one for me, I'm gonna go Brat by Namdi. He's like a very talented instrumentalist. I think he recorded just about the whole album himself. He's running the Super Records label along with Sen and Glenn. And his album's really great. I mean, he put out like a bunch of other stuff after this album that he recorded as like fundraisers and stuff. He did this EP called Black Plight that's like just really fantastic, like hardcore rock music. But Brat is just like so good. Like there's some pop, there's some hip hop in there. There's like very interesting sort of like musical ideas that get repeated across the songs. That's probably number one for me. I think it's so fantastic. And again, like I need to see him like perform it because I don't know how he would do it since he can't be in 3 places at once. So I go Brat number one for me. I think below that, and again, I don't know, not below, just around there. Jackie's House, Joshua Virtue. I think it's definitely like the album I think about. Like it sounds like quarantine, like early pandemic to me. It's just like so good. All the self-produced beats and his lyrics are really good. And there's a great like posse cut on there where he gets Davis and Malky to come on and do verses too. That just like hit really well. And again, like he put out other stuff this year that is also worth checking out, but I think that's number one. Freddie Gibbs and Alchemist Alfredo, I think is up there. I got 2 left, right? Man, that's tough. I gotta go. I think I'd put the Deeper album up there, and I think I put the Ohm album up there as well. 2 of my favorite rock projects from the whole year, and ones that I like went back to a lot. A lot of different like cool musical ideas in there, and like some of the lyrics too. Like, of course, I can't quote them without the music being played necessarily, but definitely some really strong, like interesting phrases that stick into your brain in sort of a different way than rap lyrics do. You know what I mean? The lyrics can be so oblique sometimes with some of the rock music that I was tuned into. That was kind of nice to not interpret stuff quite so literally or even pay that much attention to the lyrics the first time through the way you do with rap. So yeah, I think that's what I have to go top 5. I know Freddie Gibbs isn't quite Chicago, but he's close. I'm sure he wouldn't agree with that, but the mostly Chicago for me.
Yeah, it's a running joke within like the These Days Slack that Lewis, who I mentioned earlier, as being one of the only 2 people to listen to the Nas album.
Yeah.
It's like, yo, Freddie Gibbs, we have to include him for being Chicagoland. like Gary is, I mean, what is it? Yeah, he's from Gary. Like Gary is just like, East Chicago. If you think about it, like we always try to like make that argument that we should include him in like our end of year list just because he's close enough. Just because like, hey, Freddie Gibbs, he's a Vice Lord. He references.
Yeah, right. Does that count? Is that enough? Yeah.
His Metro show last year, like his homecoming show, like, hey. But yeah, so that's a solid list. Like, I guess for me, you know, EA, Freddie Gibbs, Golden Child, Hate Sunny, Written Testimony, Jay Lect, and then I don't know what my 5 is. I feel like that's one that always alternates. I guess for this week at the moment, it would be PTSD from Herb.
That's a great album. Yeah, really, really good. And that title track too, man, like that. I've been going back to that one a lot. Like, Chance is obviously always a contentious topic on the rap internet, but like he really has a great verse on that song. And I think I really like that song in particular because he does some of that sing-songy stuff that I think some people really don't like, but he uses it in such like a chilling way to fit like the theme of the song that it's, you know, it's like it like wraps back to being like super freaky and scary just because of the context of it. I mean, just when he holds that and we all went to GameStop, it's like, oh, gives me the chills. And the rest of that song, everyone else on that song is fantastic too. And yeah, that was such a great album. And I know there wasn't even the only Herbo project of the year, right? He did like a whole thing before it, and I think he did a whole deluxe afterwards too, right?
Yeah, he had the deluxe. That was that's a good album for sure. Like I just recently revisited it and like it brought me back. Like, oh wow, this was actually like hard. I was actually, I mean, it's funny when you mentioned how you know, how people back in the day would like have connections to, you know, Herb that would like send them leaked music. Like that's before the album dropped. I was able to listen to the intro track before the album dropped. So
oh, nice.
it was like super shitty sound quality. Well, like I remember listening to it and I'm like, yo, this shit, like just off the strength of this intro track, like this shit's gonna be like a classic. Like it's definitely one of my favorite Herb projects. Definitely one I appreciate how vulnerable he was on that. Like it goes back to what I was talking about earlier. Like I really like rappers, or I really like when like my favorite rappers just talk about the shit that they've been through. That's like, yeah, everybody could like put on a hard front, but like, man, it's like actually like there's some real shit. Like that's just what stands out to me the most about it.
Yeah, and I know he's been working on some different like programs and facilities and stuff to sort of spread the wealth around in terms of mental health for people in the city. So I don't know how much progress he's made on those programs per se, but you know, I hope that he can keep going with it and hopefully make an impact for people around him, because obviously the sort of discussions around mental health are more prevalent than they certainly used to be, and I'm glad that he's like part of that. You know, I think it's very easy. I think even for me, having, you know, grown up in a time where people did talk about their mental health. I mean, even around the holidays, I was talking with my mom about how, like, you know, people really didn't even, you know, 30, 40 years ago, you know, people wouldn't say that they were depressed and mean it. They just use it to mean sad or, you know, anxiety, any of the stuff that, you know, I think it's easy for, I think, us being younger to think of it as kind of run of the mill. You know, it wasn't always. So I'm glad that he's kind of like helping lead the charge and like making that a more common thing to discuss and like acknowledge. And I hope he's doing okay mentally, you know, as an individual.
And what do you do for self-care?
I'm trying to get better at it, man. I have definitely had like you know, no one's had an easy year by any means. And I definitely have had it easier than many others, which I'm very happy about. And definitely will have, I think, survivor's guilt about. We'll address that in future years, I'm sure. But yeah, I like definitely learned to recognize what anxiety was in myself, I think, over the course of this past year. Just started realizing like, that stress you're feeling is more than just normal stress, which was a helpful thing, I think, to acknowledge. And so for me, I feel like it's been tough being cooped up, because I feel like a lot of the stuff that I do to care for myself is getting out of the house and socializing and going to live shows and going to movies and doing all these things I like to do. So it's tough not having that lined up. But one thing I'm trying to get better at is taking the time to play instruments and make music. I like I play bass, I play a little guitar. I like to mess around on keyboard and make music production and stuff on laptops and stuff like that. And I just don't make enough time to do it. But, you know, especially now, it's like people make hit songs from, you know, their cell phones. Like I should spend some time, you know, making music. I listen to it enough and I think about it enough that I should carve out my time for it. So that's something I'm trying to be better about in 2021, I think, is just making more time for myself to make music myself.
I didn't know you made music. I need to start making my own music. I tried to early in the pandemic, I tried to like teach myself how to make beats, but that just failed miserably just because I just don't have any of the proper equipment.
Sure.
Funds to invest in it. But that's definitely like something that like I want to teach myself how to do eventually.
Yeah, I think, and that's what I like too about talking to, you know, a bunch of different artists that are kind of in different stages of their careers, you know, over the course of this year is like, obviously it's awesome if you're someone like Twilight Tone who is able to be a musician, whether it's a DJ or a producer or a rapper or whatever, in some form for, you know, decades. Like that's amazing. And if you're someone like, you know, Lil Easy, who's able to start working on it as a hobby and then blow up and get a record deal, like that's amazing. But I feel like one thing that's been really inspiring to me, and I've talked about this a lot with Lior at The Reader, because this is something that he's really embodies in his own work too, is like the idea that anybody can, and I think should, make music is a very powerful idea. I think, you know, obviously that doesn't mean everybody's going to make a hit song or they're going to make music that anyone else is going to like, or even make music that they like. But, you know, I think it's very easy for people to think, oh, well, if I don't put this music out there, or if people aren't going to like it, then why bother? But I think at the same time, there's a lot to be gained from just like literally like playing music for yourself or fiddling around with things, like, you know, at least that's what I'm trying to remind myself, you know, and try and engage in that really wholeheartedly. I think, you know,
why I wanted to teach myself how to do it is just because like I just wanted to teach myself a new hobby, a new creative hobby that could just mind off things with everything going on. So
yeah,
like,
absolutely.
I would like try to dabble in it. I would try to. Or it was around that time, like I was into like listening to like a lot of new job and like a lot of like, you know, lo-fi hip hop.
Sure, yeah.
So I'm like, let me try to make this shit, and it would always just like I said, it always just come out shitty. So it's like I'll just put it to the side. It's something like I said I want to do just for my own type of creative exercise.
I think you should, man. You know, and again, like maybe it doesn't go anywhere, but I think there's something really fun to like pressing play on something, being like, all right, I made that. Cool. You know, like I think more people should pursue that, you know, and especially too, like, I think it's kind of like you said when we started things off, right? Like if the only people that are making music or are releasing music are millionaires whose job is to make music and put it out there, like what are they going to write about that we can relate to? You know, like I want to hear music by someone who works at a chicken restaurant by day, and I want to hear music from someone who's a barista or a bartender, you know, like doing regular people shit. I mean, we both like a lot of music by drug dealers or former drug dealers, you know, and like that's obviously a complicated job, but you know, that's like a working class fucking job for a lot of people, you know? So it's like, I think as much as like, it's so easy, I think, for people to hold music to this like really high, like sacred thing. I think at the same time, people got to remember that like it's everyday people that make music, and like everyone can and should. So I'm trying to do that for myself, I think, more and more in the coming year. And like, I think more people should too, like make a little beat tape, man. I'd love to hear it, you know, like it might take you some time, but it'd be cool.
Yo, all right, 2021, be on the lookout. I don't know.
Maybe we'll collaborate on something. You know what I'm saying? I'll play some live bass for your beats. We can make it happen.
Post-vaccine, we'll set it up.
Yeah, exactly. That's the other thing, man. Like, forget going to shows. Like, as soon as this all is over, I'm cramming every musician friend I know in a garage or something, and we're just gonna jam for hours. You know, like, yeah, that's gonna be great.
Where can people find you at?
I'm on Twitter at Jack Riedy, Riedy. I'm on Instagram, badgalriedy, Riedy. I got a website, jackriedy.com. I write my little articles. I show up on dope podcasts, much like this one. I run a little playlist of Chicago hip hop that updated about monthly. Got another one coming soon, so keep your eyes out for that, called Tick Tick Bump. Just to kind of keep a spotlight on like what's going on in Chicago hip hop specifically. And yeah, I be writing stuff. I've been tweeting stuff. And otherwise I'm home until further notice, so I'll be playing video games sometimes and watching movies. I'm trying to read more books. That's another thing. Self-care 2021, have the attention span for books, because I'll read stuff on the internet and I read stuff I'm writing and I read all the time, but I have not sat with a book very much this year, and it kills me because I do like to read if I put the time in.
Reading this year too, after like college kind of ruined reading for fun for me, just because like we had to read all this other bullshit.
Yeah, you really have to read. Yeah.
I didn't read anything I actually wanted to read for a long time, but then I finally started to read some shit that's been on my bookshelf for a minute, and that shit's actually fun. Very powerful to read. So,
it's just a matter about making time for it. That's what I'm trying to do.
Yes, sir. Any final words?
Thanks for having me, man. This is a lot of fun. I'm really excited that you've had a busy year and a tumultuous year, but I'm glad you came out with like some new projects and a new focus on yourself. And it's been a lot of fun catching up. And I'm disappointed this is the first time that we've spoken face to face, but obviously we're going to rain check for an actual celebration in person once we can do so. So thanks for having me, man. This has been super fun.
Yeah, man. With that being said, it's been Alejandro Hernandez signing out.
Forget about a bitch, and every day I can fade it out the zip, and what you say and do it matter to me, bitch, and do it matter to you. And is the money getting bigger? Is you capping? Try my hardest not to let off bitches practice bitches. I don't like to waste no time, let's make it happen, Got connections, bro, the plug here, the adapter. I just wanna count and then gon' make some money after. Bro, just called a play and now he ballin' like the Raptors. When we hit the stakes, his body's flying like the rap shit. Karma is a bitch, and 22s is flying past it. Niggas just be phony, not my bro, he be an actor. I don't need a 2 cents, no, I never asked her. Captain say the goofy, think she holy, he a pastor.